Okay, hello coaches. We are live. Apologies for being a couple of minutes late, but we had some technical issues with Skype. I'm joined by this man next to me, Siawash. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Thank you.
Good, good. I just posted half an hour ago that we were going to do this interview, and we've already got a bunch of people who are liking it, and there's some comments on the post that Neil put out a few days ago about this event in the group. So it seems like people are interested in what you have to say, which is obviously good, because otherwise we would just be talking amongst ourselves. But I thought what would be a really good thing to start off with today is some people don't know you, don't know who you are, might not have come across you. So for those people who don't know you, could you tell us a little bit about who you are and kind of how you got into coaching, how long you've been coaching for, etc.?
Yeah, sure. So, all right, good question. Um, where do I start? So I've been coaching around three and a half years. Started the journey as a life coach. Um, you know, I actually kind of fell in love with coaching by hiring a coach, and then figured out, hey, you know what, you can make a living from it, and then start doing some research into that. Um, for me, I've never liked really following the traditional way. So from a young age, I was always doing very well in school, but never really liked that idea of working in a job for 40 years. So at the age of 18, I got involved into poker, became a professional poker player, made quite a lot of money with that in the 4 years, but left that, wasn't really fulfilling, and just for around 7 8 years looking for something else. And then 3.5 years ago, hired a coach and fell in love with coaching. So start doing that, done a bit of
And
life
was
coach.
that a three principles based coach, or was that just a more traditional coach?
No, that was like a very outside in coach. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm very grateful for the coach, but actually it was very outside in, and you know yeah, it was very different. I came across the three principles around 2 years ago. One of the coach that I was working with introduced me into that, but again, he wasn't really fully into that. He just recommended me the Inside Out Revolution by Michael Neal, and I found it an impactful book, but never really kind of stopped and said, hey, let me look a bit deeper into this. So it's always quite, I mean, yeah, it was quite surface level 2 years ago, until I came to a weekend with yourself and Steve Chandler. And I realized, hey, these are all three principal coaches, and I'm the odd one out.
So,
Yeah,
so you've been coaching for 3 years in total now. Is that right?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, around a little bit longer, 3 to 3.5 years. Yeah.
And so you've been introduced to the principles for about a year.
Yeah, I think the proper introduction was probably made around the time that we started working together, I think, because before that, I read a book here and there, but it wasn't really, it was, like I said, it was really surface level. Um, and I started, reading more books around 8 months ago. So I think it's 8 months ago, I started kind of like, reading more books about it, watching more audios. Then I came into an immersion with yourself. Now I've done a bunch of courses with Michael Neal, online courses, and I actually started using it in my practice, which wasn't really planned. It just kind of happened when it started making sense, really.
And that's what I'm really looking forward to kind of exploring with you today, and how it's had an impact on your coaching and both for yourself and then also for your clients. Just to kind of complete the intro, and hello to Birdie and Zainab who are watching. And if you're watching us, give us a little wave or a thumbs up or whatever. Let us know that you're here with us. For those people who don't know you, do you work with a particular kind of client? Do you have because I know these answers, but I want to bring out for the group who you work with.
Yeah, sure. So right now I founded this company called the Muslim Coaching Academy around last year, January. So been really focused on growing that. In that company, we really help coaches grow their business. But overall, I think, in the last few years, my clients have been really a mix of people. And I think it's mainly been people that want, more in life, that want to, that keep growing, people that, want to create higher levels of happiness, success in their life. So I work, for example, right now with a CEO from America. I work with, I've worked with dentists, engineers. So it's a variety of people. But in terms of my, let's say, marketing, on who I actually focus on is Muslim coaches right now. So it's really, and by the way, look, like half of my clients are actually not Muslim. I do work with people from different backgrounds, but I don't really promote that. So now and then when I meet people and we really feel aligned, we work together. And that's been actually quite interesting because initially I thought the three principles is really something that's all about life, right? But it's made a big impact on my personal business and it's made a big impact actually on my work with entrepreneurs and with coaches. And that's been for me really kind of like what I would say is kind of like the gem, because as I was thinking about this conversation, I was thinking about, okay, what has been really useful for me. You see, when I started coaching, I would work with someone on their relationship and I would buy 5 books on relationship. I would work with someone on productivity, buy 5 books there. And I would constantly work with people on different areas of life and buy a bunch of books on that topic, buy a bunch of courses
for yourself
on that topic.
Or for them.
No, I would buy it for myself, right? So for me, it was like, okay, someone is struggling with confidence, and I would buy a course on confidence, books on confidence, and then I would coach them on confidence, right? Even though, like, really as a coach, you don't need to be an expert on that. It really helped me to help my clients, right? But what I've really seen is, and that's for me really profound, is that the 3 principles, this understanding actually applies to each area of life, right? As I started coaching some of my clients, they're losing a lot more weight. They're exercising much more easily, and they're making much more money in business, right? Their levels of happiness and well-being is increased. So just this understanding has impacted myself and my clients in kind of like in all areas of life. So rather than now reading more books about weight, like how to help people lose weight or how to help people improve their finances, I just read more books on this understanding, and it just helps me to impact people, in a much deeper level. And that's been actually the coolest thing, actually.
So tell me a bit about how it's impacted you personally, because you said it's impacted you personally, and then it's impacted your clients. So as a coach yourself, you've obviously been around personal development. You've done a lot of stuff. You said you were kind of, I'm sure you were looking into psychology and things when you were playing poker, no doubt.
Yeah.
So what changed for you personally from looking at this understanding?
Yeah, what really changed is because I've been involved in personal development for around 10-12 years, right? And what really changed for me is that, see, I think some books in personal development do kind of point towards the inside out understanding, and that things are created from the inside out, but a lot of books don't, right? So I was kind of like, really like, I had this morning routine, and it's like, okay, I need to do my meditation, yoga, affirmation, visualization, and if I don't do that, I'm gonna be all over the place, right? So for me, it's like, well, I need to really hold on to that, right? I came from a background of being really like emotionally like a roller coaster to, you know, to getting it together, but kind of like holding it together with personal development. And there was this kind of like this fear in the back of my mind that, you know what, if I stop this personal development, I might kind of lose it, right? But what this understanding has really helped me see is that I don't need to be meditating. I still do meditate, but it's more for me about creating space and not so much like I know it's actually that my natural state is a state of well-being, a state of happiness, confidence. So that's made a big shift for me, and I think it's almost like black and white, right? It's a huge difference because a lot of personal development is about like, hey, you need to be doing this and this and that to get this feeling or this state. But what I'm getting now is basically that, hey, you don't need that. I spend a lot of money learning about NLP, and I don't use NLP anymore, right? I don't use it on myself. I don't use it with clients anymore. So it just becomes so much easier for me to actually go through life because I just allow myself to slow down. I create a bit more space. I don't need to, jump up and down and hit my, you know, like act like King Kong, say some crazy stuff to get myself in this powerful state. And yeah, it just feels a lot more easy. I would really use the word like effortless, you know. That's been the biggest difference for me. It's made life easier, more enjoyable. Um, my levels of happiness has really increased a lot. And there's kind of like there's this pressure of me, this pressure of like I need to be doing this, morning routine, evening routine, and stuff. Yeah. I
So,
don't know if that answered your question, but
yeah.
yeah,
Now, some
yeah,
people, what I'm really interested in is then how's this impacted your business? Because this is a group of professionals. These are, the
yeah,
group today is all about coaches, and some people might think, well, when you take the pressure off yourself and
mm,
you cut out your routine, then your business will suffer. And I know that has happened for some people that have come
yeah.
across the principles and they've struggled a bit. How's that transition been for you? Has that negatively impacted your business, or has it actually made it easier?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. So for me, actually, it's made things easier because I do understand that, yes, maybe in terms of we can have the well-being, the peace and happiness, but that's not gonna help us, create the income or create the impact in other people's lives, right? So I do get the practical part, right? Where at the end of the day, look, if I want to help someone, I need to speak to someone, right? I've never really been into like the law of attraction, but I've never believed that, I can just sit back and, all people are gonna come to me, you know. So for me, it's about being proactive, taking ownership. And when I see someone and I think I can help them, I reach out to them. I speak to them. I do a bit of effort, right? So, what the three principles, I mean, what is the three principles have really done for me, this understanding has helped me do is basically release or drop my stories around it. So, for example, I had a lot of money goals, right? I remember in a session where I said, hey, you know what? I want to make 60K in the next 3 months. And we spent most of the session talking about why, right? And the biggest, I mean, what made a really big impact is that for me realizing that I don't need the money to feel secure or to feel happy, to feel confident, or to feel like I've made it, right? And when I dropped all of that, making money became so much easier because it was just from a place of I choose to create it rather than I need it or I want it. And I think, when we kind of, you know, there's these different levels, right? So sometimes we're desperate because we need to pay bills. Sometimes we feel like we have to. But that higher level is really just choosing to and creating, and it's so much fun. We're more creative. So for me, it actually helped me make much more money in an easier way. And I didn't have all these ideas about rejection, so I just speak to people. I'm a bit more direct about how I can help them. If they say no, I still sometimes get a bit disappointed, but it's just in a moment. And then I realize that, hey, you know what? That feeling of disappointment comes from me, not so much from that person saying no to me. So yeah, it just made it easier for me to talk to people, be a bit more transparent, about how I can help people, and just coming also really from a place of love and compassion, and not so much about, I need this. Um, so yeah, in short, my business has grown significantly. We just checked the numbers. We hit 100K last 6 months. And yeah, it's been really good. Business actually been really good, and it's actually helped me to help more people, right? Because I got over my own stories of, like, a lot of, yeah, and I'm sure, like, I still have a lot of misunderstandings, but a lot of my own misunderstandings have been slowly have dropped, right? And I think in business we get in our own way, and it's really having this understanding can really help to actually, put one foot in front of the other, and actually, do the work, get some good results. Yeah.
So we've got a bunch of people commenting. Zainab is sharing a bunch of comments.
Okay.
Siawash is a great coach even before 3P. I'm excited for clients that will work with you from the 3P's understanding. It would be nothing short of exponential. She's glad you've trashed NLP. But we want to make these interactive. So if anyone's got
Yeah,
any
sure.
questions for Siawash, either on how he works with CEOs or engineers or dentists or coaches from a 3P understanding, anything like that, would love to hear from you. If you've got any questions around, any of the practicalities, we really want to be of service to you today. And already we've got a question from Zainab. You're really on it today, Zainab. So Zainab's question is, and if you've got any more, please leave them and we'll try and get through as many as we can. Zainab said, so coming purely from a place of love was the game changer for your business, question mark. So I think what she's saying is, I'll kind of rephrase. Did the principles help you come more purely from a place of love? And if so, was that the game changer in your business?
Yeah, I think helping me a little bit. You see, what it was for me, it was helping me see that I had a lot of misunderstandings, but also people that are in front of me have a lot of misunderstandings, right? But what the three principles help me really see is, and I mean, this is kind of like fundamental in coaching, that we say, like, hey, people are whole, perfect, resourceful, right? People don't need to be fixed. But I think a lot of times as coaches, we go into there like, oh, we need to fix this person, we need to help this person out, right? So what the three principles just really help me do is just slow down and go back to that fundamental, to those basics, to those foundations, right? And see that whenever someone was showing resistance, I could just kind of like go past that through being more loving and compassionate. And I think it at the end of the day, especially as a coach, it starts with us. I'm not the kind of person that, as a coach, I don't believe it's my job to be someone's friend. So it's not that kind of loving. But it's just about, really coming from a place of understanding that, hey, you know what, it's this is what I'm seeing, but I know this person has a huge potential. And really Not just kind of like knowing that, but really believing in that. That made a really big difference for me, because the moment we can really communicate that to someone, their confidence will grow, their belief in themselves will grow. Um, but yeah, it just really changed the way I do, the way I work with people. So I've been able to communicate a bit more openly, and often also more direct, but from a loving place. And let me clarify that, because sometimes it would be more direct because I thought that would just serve people. That's what I need to do as a coach. I need to challenge people, right? But it was kind of like it didn't come from necessarily always a loving place. It was sometimes just a place of like, oh, this is gonna be service. This is uh, what's necessary. But now it's actually about like, hey, I know that someone has so much more potential, and I know what's getting in the way. And really, the best way to facilitate change is through love, right? Not through being really harsh, because that's when people's ego just come up. So yeah, that made a big difference. And I think it just changes our energy. People feel what we feel. If I'm sitting across someone and just thinking like, hey, you know what? Like, I need your money, people will feel that, right? But if we just sit there from a place of love, people will also feel that. And that's one of the things, like, especially as coaches, right? We're in a relationship business, right? People will, if you make a great impact on them, show them that you care, people will come back to you. People will feel the difference, because there's so much out there right now where, all this marketing is creating more distance between the coach and the client. And a lot of coaches are, using sales tactics to sign up clients, and there's no real love or care there, right? Yeah, I'm not sure if Zainab that was helpful, but that's kind of my understanding of it. That it's come from our, you know, it comes from you as a coach really understanding that, hey, you know what, every single person has that potential, and then just being loving, but at the same time not necessarily just being their friend.
I remember having a conversation with Elsie Spittle. I'm pretty sure it was Elsie some years ago, and I might be imagining this. Maybe I had a dream, but I think I think this is true. And talking about how the essence of the principles is love,
Mm,
and what I see and what I hear from what you're saying is that the more that we understand that our reality is created via these three principles, we rediscover our true essence, our true nature, which some people can call love. Before judgment, before ego. And so when we show up more from that place with clients, then the rapport that is created with the other person in front of us is so much deeper, because we're coming from a much deeper place. I sometimes call it soul level rapport, because it's at the level of the soul, it's at the level of who we truly are. And I see that the more that I see that for myself, the more I see that in the other. And I think that's what I hear you're saying, that you've seen more truly who you are, which is love, which is that essence. And so when you're working with clients, you see the same in them, and they feel that.
mm.
Or
Yeah,
am I kind of making that up? Is that's what I heard?
no, I think it's good, and actually this is quite funny, because 3 years ago, no, this is actually 4 or 5 years ago, I was doing like um, what do you call it, like a network marketing business, and I read the sales book, and this book is actually quite good. It's called The Greatest Salesman Ever, or The Greatest Salesman in the World, and one of the chapters in the book is all about love, and it says like anytime you're selling to someone, keep saying to yourself like, I love this person. And I used to do that, and it would really change my energy towards this person. But it was more like a sales technique, So I would sit in front of someone and think like, hey, you know what? I really love this person. I really love this person. And actually now it's more genuine. right? Because when we actually, and I recommend people doing this, right? Like if you maybe some like this can help in the beginning to maybe actually say it, don't say it out loud because then you might freak the other person out. But actually just practice saying it because it just changes your energy towards the person, right? When you're sitting in front of someone and it's like sitting in front of your, like I have a little girl and it's like sitting in front of her. I'll be very loving and patient and understanding, right? It's very different, and I think that's what made a big difference to me. And I think there's this thing that comes up for me that Michael Neal said, or Michael Neal had a bit of difficulty with selling, and Steve Chandler said, "How would it be for you to sell to your son?" Right? And that really changed everything for him. And that's how I see it. Like if we sell to someone from that place of love, we're not gonna be, we don't hold back. We're just direct and say, hey, look, I think this program is gonna change everything for you, right? And when I speak to people, if I know that this program is gonna make a big impact on their business or on their life, I'm gonna be super direct about it. I'm gonna be open about it, right? If I know that they're holding on to some excuses or things, stories, I will call them out on that. But again, from a place of love, like you would do with your son or your daughter, right? So that's kind of how I see it. On a practical level, it's about speaking to someone you actually love, right? Not just kind of like making it up.
Well, I love you, Siawash. There we go. We'll start
Thank
there.
you.
It's funny. I remember hearing Steve Hardison talk many years ago in London about how he loved his clients, and I remember thinking, "You are a crazy American." Like what nonsense is this? And I don't know if
Yeah.
this is the same in Europe, but certainly in the UK, we have this little, you know, don't talk about feelings, arm's length. And what I
Yeah.
found is the more that I deepen my understanding of the principles, it's like I couldn't help but love my clients. Despite what I like, the technique is not necessary. And the more you see this, it's what comes out. We've got another question from Alfredo, who says,
Yeah.
"Great to see you, Siawash. What have you struggled with in bringing the 3Ps to your clients or to solve their challenges?"
All right. So, well, initially, I think really the struggle was about finding the right words, right? But then I just kind of stopped really caring about that and, you know, just went with it. And I think something also that I experimented in the beginning with is just kind of giving the theory to people, right? And I almost want to basically say, hey, look, this is how it works. So I often use what I've learned from Dr. Keith Blevins, right, about the single paradigm. So I draw the little diagram and say, so this is what you're thinking. So this is your thought, you know, and you know, does it really work like that? So I would often bring it up. Exactly, yeah, that's the one, right? If you want a copy of that, then you have to sign up for a program. And just joking, but um, yeah. So initially, it was actually very much about like, oh, I have to give them the theory and almost like tell them the insight, right? Like you see that it's not coming from, you know, it's not coming from your partner. The feeling is not coming from your partner. Can you see it? And they'll be like, yeah, I can see it. Yeah, you're right, right? But actually, it wouldn't really. It was almost like I gave it to them, right? It wasn't really working. And when I really slow down to it, like now I don't really share the theory with people. I just slow down, create a bit of space, and actually coach them, right? And it's just to just asking questions, slowing down, and allowing the questions to kind of, you know, letting them to explore the possibilities through the questions. And I really believe that, that people get towards the truth, right? by by us creating the space and the question. So now I have much more that something, just one question. I was coaching someone. Um, I was coaching someone. Let's just call her Amanda. I was coaching Amanda, and I just asked her one question, and she just broke down in tears, and she said, "Wow, 21 years of marriage. I've never seen it like this." And then I realized that, I mean, that's what really coaching is about, right? Coaching is not about giving people solutions or just focusing on the problem. It's really focusing on their thinking, right? So I just stopped kind of pushing them towards the inside out. I stopped kind of giving them the idea of like, hey, look, life is not outside in, life is inside out. I started just coaching them towards this, through questioning. And yeah, so the struggle initially was just really, how am I going to do this? But then I kind of let go of the how and just went with it and became present. So I think what's been useful for me is the learning about it in different ways from different teachers. Some are more spiritual, some are more academical, um, and then yeah, just sharing this with clients through coaching. And sometimes a follow up is quite good to recommend them a book. So with one of my clients, we did this. We explored this in a session, and then I recommended a few books, and it's been really powerful for her. And there's a lot of shifts that's been happening because of the learning on the back of that. But yeah, I think it's just about a lot of, I don't have a specific way. I would say it's a lot about experimenting, but staying the coach, not necessarily becoming a teacher. And I'm sure there's some benefit to the teaching, right? But one-on-one coaching, you want to stay the coach. There's a great book by David Rock. It's called Quiet Leadership, where David talks about how actually ineffective it is to focus on the problem or focus on the solution. And it's like a little bit like an iceberg, right? People's actions and people's behavior is the tip of the iceberg. And often we try to change that as coaches, but what we want to focus on is on a deeper level, their emotions, and on the bottom, the deepest level is their thinking. So we want to question their thinking. And I think that's what really facilitates the insights and the transformation to happen. Yeah, I hope that was helpful, Alfredo. Good to have you here.
Yeah, let us know if that was helpful to you, Alfredo. Certainly, what I heard from you, Siawash, is, and we've talked about this a couple of times. There's an interview or webinar that I did with Dominic Scafidi about the difference between coaching and teaching, which is in this group. If you scroll down somewhere, you'll find it. And Steve Chandler interviewed me a few years ago about coaching as a profession versus the principles as an understanding, and that's what I really heard in your answer there, that you've deepened your understanding of the principles. It's changed where you're coming from, but your profession is still that of a coach, and so you still are showing up as a coach. You're still questioning and not turning into a cult leader. Hey, here's the latest thing I found. You now need to think like this, or you need to understand this yourself. And I think that's something that distinction that can often get lost.
Yeah, and I think we often get excited. I mean, I got excited when I learned these things and I started sharing it and teaching it. And I was just kind of like, oh, you're not getting it. They're like, yeah, I'm getting it. But I'm like, well, and then you meet them next week and nothing's changed, right? So it's very easy to share, where, what's the right way, but I don't think it's very useful. And I think, you made a very good point, is as coaches, to build a successful business, our ability to coach is probably the most important, right? The better we become as a coach, the better experience we can create and actually create transformation for our clients. So yeah, spend time learning about how to become a great coach, so you can actually coach people, from this understanding. I think that's gonna be very useful.
Yeah, I totally resonate with that, and it's something that I took for granted. For the first couple of years, I thought I just need to understand the principles more and more deeply, and then everything will kind of work itself out. And don't get me wrong, it was really helpful, and I experimented a lot and I learnt a lot. But it was only when I started getting a deeper understanding of what coaching was and how it was distinct to the understanding of the principles that my coaching business really started to take off. And I'm constantly looking at improving that. You know, I don't think that's you know, the end of a journey, so to speak. You know, and I remember, you know, when I've spoken to other people who do really well, they might not speak about it, but they'll you know, even in the 3P world, they're constantly looking at other coaches or teachers or, you know, therapists or people outside of the 3P community to see what they can learn from them, see what inspiration they can take from them. And I really respect that from people, because, you know, I see that for myself all the time. You know, in you know, a great little question I might pick up. Now, I will use wisdom in when to ask that question, and it's not like, okay, here's my list of things, here's a technique. But you know, it was a Dusan Dukic who, from him I learned, you know, he starts his conversations with, what would make this conversation amazingly useful to you? And I don't use that conversation every time. I might use variants of it, but it really helped me to jump straight into framing the conversation as a coaching conversation. So
yeah, exactly. I think, you know, the more effective we become as a coach, you know, the better we can utilize the time that we have with someone. I remember, like, you know, well, she might see this one day, but she knows. So I've been coaching this CEO for almost 6 to 8 months right now. And in the beginning, we had like 1.5 hour session, and she would just talk the whole session, right? And she's paying me a lot of money. And after a while, I was like, hey, you know, I checked in with her and I said, hey, you know, you're paying me a lot of money, and I don't think we're going anywhere. And part of it was not her. I had to actually step in and say, hey, you know what? So today, what would you like to focus on today? And sometimes stopping her and say, hey, what's the purpose of you telling me this story, right? So just getting to the point actually makes you so much more effective as a coach. And this great book there called The Coaching Habit, where it talks about a bunch of questions that we can ask as coaches. You know, sometimes, for example, just saying, what's the problem specifically here? I don't need to know all the details, right? So it's just actually, as a coach, you know, knowing how to manage conversations and knowing how to get to the point. You know, and sometimes, of course, you want to create a bit more space, but knowing actually how to maneuver in these coaching conversations can make you so much more effective. And the better you become as a coach, again, you know, you can charge more, you know, more people will love to work with you, they'll recommend others to you. And I've seen this really in my work, is that, you know, I think the principles really also help me become better as a coach, because I understand, you know, for me, this is like understanding the human psychology a little bit better, right? So, you know, I'm using this a lot now in my coaching, coaching people around sales, coaching people around, you know, I don't coach a lot about people around relationships, but when it comes to it, you know, again, it's coaching people on these different areas and making an impact, right? That's when I see, you know, people sign up so easily, right? And I shared this story with you, Ankush, that I had a 2 hour call with someone, a coaching call, and, you know, she came on the call to talk about my program, but I just coached her around her relationship, and she had an insight, and then she just said, okay, how do I enroll into your program? And then join the program, right? And I've seen this again and again, that when the impact is created, we don't need to do much selling, because people want to continue with us. So, yeah, there are more pieces that we need to pay attention to as coaches, you know, marketing, you know, selling, and we can do it in a different way. We don't need to do it like most marketers are doing it, or like most people are selling, right? Very manipulative, using scripts and stuff. We can do it in a different way. right? But it's great to actually see that these are skills that we can develop, and that's really helped me grow my business. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember someone sent me a script, God, 5 years ago, and it was literally like 20 questions. These are the 20 questions to ask, and it ends up with a client paying you. And I used it once, and then the second time I used it like a little bit less, and the third time I used it a little bit less. But and then I kind of just stopped using it. But it was really useful to give me some basic structure of like what's an example of a great coaching conversation,
Yeah.
and what sort of questions were people asking, and then trusting wisdom to guide me in terms of what questions to ask.
Yeah.
So Alfredo said that your answer was helpful, so thank you. Zainab said she's learnt a lot from the way you've leaned into bringing the principles, understanding into coaching clients. Wow! So you've got a big fan there. Umbreen says good to see you both. Siawash is a great coach, which I've worked with and learnt a lot from. With a smiley face with heart eyes. So you've got your fans on this call. If there's any more questions from the group, I would love people to ask anything. I know a lot of people are going to watch this on the replay, so it'll be beneficial for people. Don't be afraid to ask any questions that you might think are stupid, or people might know, or be judged for. The questions are really really useful and really helpful, and to make
Yeah.
this interactive, and
Yeah, and I'm happy to answer them. If it's after on a replay, just let us know in the comments and tag me or Ankush, and then the notification will come up.
yeah, and you're actually in this group as well. So some of the people I
Yeah,
interview are not,
I'm not
but
super active, but I read what you post and what some others post, and I think it's useful to see. And I think that's a great way of learning as well, right? By observing what others are doing, what struggles they're going through. And for me in business, that's one thing that I've always been doing is modeling other people, seeing what they're doing, right? Yeah, and I think having this understanding is really cool, but we just also need to understand that if we cannot you know enroll people, if we cannot actually coach people, it kind of like the service will end there, right? So to actually impact people, we need to be able to coach them. We need to be able to enroll them in our programs. So yeah, I highly recommend people to actually invest time and time, money, energy into getting better at business.
if someone's listening to
Yeah.
this and they go, okay, I want to do that, there are so many things offered by so many different people who are saying, oh, we can help you do that. Where does someone start with that?
Ooh, good question. Um, well, what's really helped me was a book called The Prosperous Coach. I'm sure a lot of you guys in the group have heard of it, and that was a good starting point, right? Really seeing that coaching is about building relationships, and we can really slow down to having one conversation at a time. But I think next to that is, I think, um, you know spending a bit of time developing skills. I mentioned earlier, I think there's nothing that you can't learn, right? I really believe that all of us can learn to become a bit better at marketing, selling, because really business is just three things, right? Marketing, selling, coaching. Like marketing, selling, and delivering. Like the marketing helps you actually get more people um, in front of more people, so people can experience your work. The selling part helps you to enroll them, and the coaching is the delivery part, right? And I think it's just finding people that you align with. They're personally, like, I would kind of avoid a lot of people. I would really follow people that are doing the similar things. So people like Michael Neal, people like yourself, Steve Chandler, people that actually kind of have built businesses. So I would follow people that following these principles, or actually coming from that place, but actually build successful businesses, right? So we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We can look at people like Steve Chandler, Michael Neal, yourself, and actually see like, okay, hey, how are they doing it, right? Because a lot of marketing books and sales books, they will do it in a very different way, and it will just it's very outside in, and it will create a lot of confusion. And we have had this conversation, right? So I love reading business books, and often I would just kind of go there, and I feel like, and then I come back here, right? So it's finding people that we're aligned with, and whether it's an online course or a group coaching program, and then maybe finding a really good one-on-one coach that can help you, someone that's kind of walked that path before. I'm part right now of Steve's school. That's been really helpful, and I think it's just spending more time in groups, of people that are on that path, because I think it's great for us to focus on learning more about the principles, but we want to spread this, we want to impact more people. So with that intention, I think we will all will bring more good to the world by really getting better at that.
Yeah, I've said this before, and I really see this as an apprenticeship profession. And I know you left yourself out of that as well, but I know you have apprentices who really learnt from you, and who are obviously impacted by you, and have really grown their own coaching practices as well. Certainly I see that as a really valuable thing for people to do, and it's often in the small nitty gritties, that we can't cover in a webinar, that we can't really talk about. What happens in this situation, what do I do over here. And I remember when I was first starting out, that was really missing for me, that I felt like I couldn't find the answers to that anywhere. And it was when I had a coach, and I know you do this for your clients, that you can just really guide them based on what and having walked that path before them.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm not shy to say that. I think we need to understand that doctors work with more experienced doctors, right? We have people in other professions, but sometimes when we look at coaching, it's like, oh, a coach is helping other coaches. I think it's great, finding someone rather than because I've invested a lot of money into programs that were run by so-called experts on growing businesses, but they don't actually coach people. Like, they don't life coach people. They're just gonna help coaches grow their business, right? You can call them marketers. So that's not really helpful, because they haven't really walked that path. They can kind of talk you through to how to market and sell, but when you work with an actual coach, he will actually take you through, the practical steps. So I do highly recommend that. But if someone is not able to invest in that, there are some great books written by coaches, and it's just, again, taking small steps, right? I think if we are sincere about what we do, if we there are plenty of great programs out there. There are plenty of great opportunities to grow our business skills, right? And I think it's a never-ending thing, right? I think you or yourself or Steve introduced this triangle of change, right, to me at one event, and I think it's very good to understand that if we have this triangle of change, right, we have on one side perception, the understanding, the thinking, and on one side we have the actions, and on the bottom we have, for example, the systems or the structure, right? But just having a great mindset, or just understanding the world from the three principles, is often not just enough. You need to know, hey, what actions do I need to take for me to grow my business, grow my income, get clients? But at the same time, you need a good structure, like you have in a job, right? And I think if you're able to put those three things into your work, you will start getting good results. So I think it's looking at how you can bring that into your work. Again, that's probably another long conversation.
Yeah, I want to give a
And
shout out to Fred Blum, who introduced me to that triangle, and this is his business card where he's got that
I
triangle. I
like
don't
that.
know if it's there: perception, behavior, and structure. We
Yeah.
can't really cover that in detail and do it justice right now, but reach out to Siawash and myself if you want to learn more about what on earth we're talking about. But yeah, that model, and it is a model, was really helpful to me to see why is it that some people come across the three principles and have rapid change and do all this stuff, and other people come across the principles and then they seem to struggle. And there were, for me, some areas where I was doing really well after learning the principles, and other areas where I was not doing so well, and I was like, hey, what's going on? And that triad, that triangle, really helped explain why that was.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And Breen said you were the one that introduced her to the three principles. And Zainab said that she heard of the Prosperous Coach from you, and it was transformational. Yeah, I recommend that book. It was one of the first books that I read as a coach that really helped me start to get clients. I'd been coaching for about 8 months, and then read that, and then I was like, that's when I started regularly getting clients for myself. So highly recommend that book. If we've got any other questions, let us know. Otherwise, we'll get ready to wrap up. If we don't get any other questions, Siawash, is there anything that we haven't talked about today that you wanted to share on this webinar with everyone?
Well, I think, for me, it's, if you take anything out of this, I think it's just experiment. Be willing to make mistakes, be willing to fail. That's the only way you will get better. Like putting these principles into practice in your coaching or even in your business, right? Just, go out there, have people that you can go back to, whether it's a coach or a group of people. And yeah, experiment with it. You don't need to really trust the process, right? The stuff works, the stuff is really powerful, but experiment with it and you get better and better at it. And yeah, and keep learning, right? One thing that I do notice for myself, like I was very much about learning the right words and learning information. And when I kind of slow down on that, my understanding of the three principles deepened a little bit. I wouldn't call myself an expert on it, but just allowing myself to slow down, because we can't really force things. So yeah, slow down, have fun,
Great.
and put it into practice.
So one I will ask one final one. I said that was a final question. One final question. What's next for you?
What's next for me? Well, right now we're really focused on, for me, initially, like my goal was like, okay, I need to make $1 million a year, right? That's my main focus. But I've turned the goal is still there, but I've just changed the words, and it's about making more impact, right? Like I've been working with groups of 10. And in one group that I run, we have around 40 people there. But now it's just really about going to groups of 50 or 100. And I just want to create more impact. And that's just through, becoming better at what I do, becoming better at, facilitating bigger groups. So inshallah, for me, it's just about, global impact, bigger impact, and helping more people. And especially, again, I'm really passionate about that because I struggled as a coach for a long time. Very passionate about helping coaches and kind of, simplify the whole process, helping more coaches, grow their business so they can help others, right? And, so yeah, for me, it's really about that. Just hitting that, I wouldn't call it magic number because it's not a real magic number, but, growing to 7 figures but staying sincere staying on this path of service and helping people create more impact. Yeah, that's the next thing. There's probably like a bunch of steps in between that and this, but that's the next thing, and yeah, really excited about that. And actually, that comes also from a place of showing people what's possible, because often people think like, hey, you cannot be spiritual and be wealthy or successful. And I saw this as a Muslim, that a lot of people kind of like use that as an excuse, right, to not do well. But when I came kind of in a little bit into the Three Principles community, I noticed that it's a bit similar, right? And actually, just want to show that it's possible to, be grounded, be humble, um, and still make a lot of impact. So yeah, that's kind of for me, not to prove anything, but it's just to show people that there's a good way to do that.
Excellent. Well, if people want to get hold of you, can they just message you from Facebook?
Yeah, exactly. We have a website, but just keep it easy. Just you can connect with me on Facebook, ask any question you want in the chat, in the comments here. I'm always happy to take a bit of time out and share resources or experience with people. So yeah, cool.
Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. And yeah, if you're watching this on the replay, please do leave us a comment and let us know you saw it, and let us know how this was for you.
Yeah. Thank you.